all the games I used to play in my younger, wilder days. The game of clubs and
welcome into the Turn Fantasy Golf Podcast. As always, I'm Andrew Putters with my partner in crime from Rotoballer.com, Joe Nicely. Joe, lead golf editor, like I said, at Rotoballer.com. Before we get started, Joe, before we talk about anything, let's just go ahead and plug Rotoballer for us. Talk about all the interesting stuff you got going on up there.
Yeah, man. Huge supporters of the show. We really appreciate everything Rotoballer.com does for us. Definitely want to encourage everybody to go over there and check everything out. We got the recently named FSWA Golf Writer of the Year, Spencer Aguiar, over there. We just brought on the model maniac, Byron. He's the man. He's writing an amazing betting article, so we want you to check that out. My man Rob G's doing a pivots article. Josh Bennett's doing a course breakdown. I mean, just an unbelievable lineup. We keep adding to it. The premium package is crazy cheap. You can go over to rotoballer.com right now, sign up using promo code NICE, NICE, and save 10% off PGA Premium. Definitely recommend that you do that this week.
There you go, rotoballer.com, best place in the world for your daily fantasy needs. If you're new to the show, my name's Andrew Putters, Joe Nicely, like I said, from rotoballer.com. We grew up together. Just like to talk sports, and this is something we started about 3 years coming out of the pandemic. It's something we started just to really, we got on the phone every Monday and we talked about DFS. We talked about the golf tournament. We talked about the bad beats and the putts and the can't believe that guy chunked in the water. So we decided one day just start putting it on camera. We've been doing it ever since the first tournament back from the pandemic, and this is only our second live stream ever, but so you can find us on Twitter at Andrew Putters, and he's Joe Nicely. You can find us on YouTube at the Turn Golf Pod, Fantasy Golf Pod. That's how you get a hold of us. So and what we do is we talk about golf. That's all it is. We talk about this week's what's coming up. We go down through the full DFS slate, and for us, this is coming out Monday evening, maybe 3 or 4 hours after the pricing comes out on Draftkings. So we're just this is kind of a first look show. When you say, Joe, first look,
yeah, for sure. The players this week, the pricing's been up a little bit longer, but yeah, normally when we do this on Monday evenings, kind of a first look at the DFS slate of the week.
Yeah, so let's just recap last week. Arnold Palmer Invitational. I'm not going to say disappointed, but I will say this: for guys that really, really like to sweat golf down, because I love everybody struggling, just like I know you do. But for the golfer that we kind of I hate to say this, we kind of study it. We know what the golf course is like. We feel like we know what the conditions are going to be like. And I talked to Spencer at length about this Saturday night, I think, and we were talking about how the conditions that were started the tournament were not the conditions that ended the tournament. How's that? So therefore, maybe your strategy would have been different if we'd have known what those conditions would have been like. Course conditions and weather conditions, Joe. Rory McIlroy goes out, shoots 7 under the first round. I put out the bold statement on our expert roundtable article that we put out every week. They can find it at rotoballer.com. And I said my bold statement of the week was I thought Roy was going to go coast to coast and win this tournament, lead every round. And I still even felt that, even really going into Sunday, that he had a very good chance of winning. But, man, Roy's a front runner, Joe. That's all I say. He's the Peyton Manning of golf, really good front runner. When the offense is clicking, he's right there. When it starts slowing down, we got problems. So what do you think about the tournament last week, Joe? Scottie Shaffler has a great victory. Hart goes out to Gary Woodland on 17. A little bad luck, a little bad playing. About 3 or 4 guys, man, right there. And even in the last couple of holes could have won it. Yeah,
really interesting tournament. Not something that we see every week on the PGA Tour as far as the conditions and difficulty. But you know what, man, that's a good thing. There's a lot of the same on the PGA Tour right now throughout the schedule. We see these guys go out, shoot 20, 25, even nowadays 30 under, and it can get boring. To me, it's interesting to see a different type of golf. It might not be everyone's favorite to watch on TV, but to me, it's very interesting. I love Scottie Shaffler last week. He was my heart on this show, my heart call of the week. He was in my core 4, my one and done selection. So I was pretty much all in on Scottie Shaffler across the board. Kind of didn't understand why more people weren't on Scottie Shaffler because of how well he's played and how well he's played on tough, long golf courses like Bay Hill. But obviously, no, I can understand that Rory McIlroy was very popular. The course history was there. We'd seen some form from him. So Rory was a tremendous play. But as you mentioned, terrible weekend, man. 76 over the weekend. Not sure what happened there with Rory, but, definitely kind of fell by the wayside. Our boy Vic Hovland, who we love, was right there fighting until the end. Billy Horschel continuing a strong run of golf. So just a really interesting golf tournament, not something that we see every week. Might not be everyone's cup of tea, but, I really, really like it when these courses challenge these guys.
Yeah, I agree. I liked it. I personally like it. Actually, I can fall in love with any kind of facet of if they're going to shoot 25 under or 4 under or even par. It mainly is the golf course that sells it for me, not necessarily what they shoot. This is a very good golf course. It's kind of weird to me though that we see him light up Riviera and just struggle here. I wouldn't say similar conditions, but
Well, I mean, par's relative, man. Par's a relative thing, and I try not to get too hung up on where the scores are in relation to par, but rather if it's a good course setup and if the course is a good golf course. Some people are kind of giving, the Arnold Palmer a little bit of a tough time about how they set it up last week. That is a little bit gimmicky, with just all the rough everywhere. And I get that argument. I understand it, but at the same time, these tournaments aren't ever going to be perfect. And you can't bitch when it's 30 under and then bitch when it's 5 under, and the way the course was set up this week was closer to my preference, closer to what I like to see personally. I understand that that's not for everybody, but I try not to get hung up on where it is in relation to par, but rather focus on whether it's a quality golf course and a good test, which I feel like last week was.
Yeah, I think the only thing what I was talking about, or my first response to this tournament was that I didn't realize that around the green was going to be that important on the last 2 days. It ended up being I mean, these guys were in the middle of the fairway with 9 irons and couldn't hit a green. Greens were firm, Yeah.
So I think that's probably where some of the complaints are coming in. You've played higher levels of golf and better golf courses than I have, so maybe you can speak to it a little bit better. But I think some things that Rory was saying, and some of the other guys were that good golf shots weren't getting rewarded, as they should. That everything was going off the green, and then they grew the rough out around the greens, which kind of made that a crapshoot. It was catching everything, so kind of everybody had the same shot, no matter the quality of their approach. So I mean, maybe you can speak that a little bit, Andrew. I think that's what some of the guys were complaining about last week.
Are you saying complaints coming from a player standpoint or more of the viewer standpoint?
Oh, Rory had some major things to say. I don't know if you got to see his comments, but he was pretty frustrated, and to kind of paraphrase what he was saying was that if they keep setting the golf course up like that, guys aren't going to come to that tournament because it's so hard. They're not going to go out and put themselves through that the week before the Players, which is what we're about to talk about, and one of the highest purses on the schedule. I think maybe the highest purse, $20 million. So Rory kind of laid down the gauntlet, to anybody listening from the Arnold Palmer tournament that the things need to be changed a little bit.
Yeah, I will say this: you get a shot that lands in the middle of the green, and it goes over the green, and you're in 4 inches of rough, and you hit a decent to good chip shot, and it's got 8 foot, and it's not got a name U.S. Open, the Masters, or Open Championship. There's going to be complaints, and there's even complaints in those, Joe. So I do understand that. It was very. I mean, I was sweating down the Adam Shank. I don't remember who he's matched up again. A boy from UTC, Steven Yeager, on Saturday, and Shank was like 4 shots behind him, at the turn, and he's like just parring and parring and parring, and Jaeger's, the wheels are starting to come off because it's playing very difficult. And then I'm like, okay, Shank, let's just hit it in the fairway. Let's hit it on the green. And then, like I said, 162, and then you hit it 40 foot over the green or something. It was just I've played in tournaments where it's been like that before, and it is frustrating. But if everybody's got to play it, it's fair. And if it's not, as long as it's consistent, that's the main thing. It needs to be consistent every hole and every shot. If it's not, then I can see how the complaint's there. But anyway, let's not harp on the course conditions. It was a great tournament. Scottie Shaffler getting a second win in just a few weeks. Guys literally taking, he's finally stepping, or I wouldn't say finally, he's stepping into that role of being an elite player, top 10 player in the world. And many more good things are going to come in the future. We just felt like you have said on the show several times that he just need to take the cap off, and he's done that now. So, and yeah, great finish in 3 holes, easy par 5, par 3, and then that very, very tight and you have to have a great approach shot in on 18 to even have a 20-foot putt. So I thought it was fair and difficult, and it is what it is. I mean, I probably couldn't break 85 on it. So who cares, right? Let's talk about the Players, Joe. That's why everybody's here. That's why we're here. Let's talk about the Players Championship. Let's get a little background on the tournament. Players Championship was established in 1974. It is played at the TBC Sawgrass. It wasn't always played there, though, guys. It was started out at the Atlantic Country Club, moved to Colonial in 75. 76 was played somewhere else in Florida. Then it got moved to Sawgrass Country Club in 77. And while it was there, it was a pretty difficult golf course, really. And then 1982 moved to the TBC Sawgrass. It's played there every year since. And we've had great finishes here. It's a very entertaining course. As far as the course goes, 72, 56, par 72, standard 4 par 5s, 4 par 3s. We got some Bermuda and overseed. I'm not really sure what the overseed looks like this type of year, because this is only third year or second year. It's the third year that they moved it back up early in the schedule, I think, now. So I'm not really sure what that looks like now compared to what it used to look in May, because May, let's be honest, part of the reason they moved it, one of the reasons they moved it out of from May back up early in the schedule before the Masters was it was really not a competitive tournament. The golf course is a lot easier once you get in the early summer. Golf course was designed by Pete Dye in 1980. Since then, Pete Dye and Steve Winslow in 2016 renovated it. Of course, we all know about the finishing holes, the gettable par 5 16th. The Island Green at the 17th, which is always a great show with the Sunday pin on the right. And then the very, very difficult tee shot on 18 to finish. Great golf course, Joe. It is made for TV. That's why they designed it. Joe, what do you think about it?
Yeah, man. Kind of the first golf course of its kind, the first true, stadium top golf course, which is, obviously become a very popular thing now. But this was the first one. This one kind of broke the mold. Very interesting, story behind the design. Pete Dye didn't want any type of style to have an advantage on this golf course, so he kind of did everything he could to make it tough, and so it didn't play to one style, and I think he's pretty successful in that venture, as we've seen a ton of different types of golfers win this event over the years. Very diverse list of former champions. So it's a highly volatile event, AP. That's what I kind of try to remind myself every year. Very exciting, huge tournaments, DFS tournaments on Draftkings. FanDuel stepped their game up this week, I noticed, with some better contests. Amazing field, which we're going to get into. You can make pretty much any type of roster you want. But with all that said, there's a lot of variance in this event because of this golf course. I mean, even guys that play well, that have good course history, you're going to see a couple miscuts on their player's game log because, this course is just so unpredictable. It can jump up and bite guys. As you mentioned, there's several tricky holes on this golf course. Obviously, the Island Green is the famous one, but I'm looking forward to it. It's always fun to watch on TV, as you said. Guys can go out and make birdie. So really looking forward to the players this week, man.
Me too, Joe. Hate to mention this, but got to say it out loud. This is the tournament where the pandemic hit us. What was it? Hideki shot, nobody owned him that week, and he shot like 900. And you're the only guy had him never line up, Joe. Is that right?
I had a lot of Hideki that week, man. That's all I'm going to say.
I'll tell you another thing, guys. I'm going to give a shout out to my man Spencer here. He calls out Jason Day for every tournament that he plays in, which is, comical at this point. But this tournament has a rich history of feel-good stories coming down the stretch. Justin Thomas last year. I can't remember. There's been a couple other, deaths back in the day. I think somebody else has had a death in the family, and then one, come back and won on Sunday. And it got a history of feel good here on Sunday at the Players.
Yeah, I mean, let's I think a lot of us can kind of give the players a hard time, like with the all caps and all that, and obviously the PGA Tour is pretty self-important about this tournament, and that can kind of get old and it's easy to poke fun of. But at the end of the day, man, let's remember this is a huge tournament that means a lot to these guys. Everybody in the field wants to win this thing. There's obviously tons of money at stake, tons of prestige and history at stake, and we've got the 4 majors, and this one isn't quite there, but it's certainly next on the list, up there with tournament we seen last week, the Arnold Palmer, the Memorial, the Genesis. I mean, there's half dozen to 10 events that really, really, truly matter to these guys every year, and this is definitely one of them. So a big event. Yeah,
and let's not to mention the $3.6 million to the winner this year, Joe. $20 million purse, 3.6 to the winner. It's very important to the one and dones, guys. Very important. If you got one and done leagues, you need to get this one right.
Wow.
Anyway, so Joe, you want to get in the slate, bud?
Yeah, man. Let's dive in. We got a lot to dig into with this one, man. So many good players.
Yeah, let's dig into it. I meant one more thing I was going to say. This course is historically very, very good iron players do well here. Around the green basically has zero value at this track. If you don't hit the green, you're in the bunker, you're in the water. So, chipping is really not is a non-factor this week. So remember that whenever you're building your lineup. So let's just say 10K and above: Vic Hovland, JT, Morikawa, Rory, Rahm. I'm gonna let you take the lead on this, Joe, and I'll give you my rebuttal.
Oh, you like all these guys, man. There's not a bad one in the bunch, and we're gonna say that in a lot of ranges this week as we work our way down the salary scale. Jon Rahm's the only player above 11K. It's tough to argue with. Number 1 player in the world, and man, the guy just has been so consistent this year. Had a T17 last week at the API, Andrew, and I don't think I've seen the guy hit a shot all weekend. So I mean that T17, a top 20 almost feels like his floor at this point with the way he's playing. He actually struck the ball really, really well last week. Just had a terrible week on the greens at Bay Hill. So the ball striking is very, very good. He's improved every single start of his career in this golf tournament, and that culminated with a T9 last year. So he's slowly but surely kind of getting the hang of this sawgrass layout. I wouldn't say that it necessarily suits his strengths, but he is an elite option, and definitely one of the better players in the world, and somebody you kind of always have to respect. Rory, man, coming off a kind of a rough weekend, 76-76 at Bay Hill. You got to think that's going to leave a bad taste in a lot of mouths, man. Rory was very popular last week. I think we'll see his ownership take a dip this week, especially with him being second on the salary scale. A little bit surprised by that. But we do have some good course history in this event. Obviously, won here back in 2019. He's got 3 career top 10s at Sawgrass, but he has missed a cut in 2 of his last 3. So there's some question marks surrounding Rory. You might want to go back there. It might be a little bit of a contrarian option, I think, as far as the type of ownership he's going to garner this week versus last week. One of our favorites, man, Colin Moricawa. The dude is just playing out of his mind. The iron play, we know he's a generational talent when it comes to the irons. You mentioned around the green play. That's certainly his weakness. He's 96 in strokes gained around the green coming into this week. We know the putter can come and go. Does have a debut under his belt. Made his first player start last year, had a T41, but a little tidbit AP. Had a final round 66 last year in the players. So, maybe Morikawa figured something out there in that final round last year. But kind of something to think about as he's coming in with really good form. JT, defending champ. We've never had a back-to-back players champion. So JT's kind of trying to set a precedent this week. But if anyone can do it, it's him, man. We've seen flashes this year. Doesn't have a win yet, has failed to put 4 rounds together, but he's played very well in spurts. He's got top 8s in 3 of his 4 starts this year. So JT's certainly capable of coming out and defending his title this week. And then Vic Hovland. We love the kid. He's one of our favorites. He's playing phenomenal from tee to green. Gained 10.6 strokes on approach over his last 2 combined starts. Got a couple of top 5s against elite fields. So there's a lot to like with Vic. He missed the cut last year in his first players, but I don't know how you between these guys up here, AP. Give me your thoughts, man. Tell me who you're leaning, and I think kind of something we're going to have to talk about on this slate is making some really, really tough choices because there are so many good players available.
Yeah, I'll say one thing. John Rahm, we say it all the time that he feels like he plays terrible and he finishes 8th, 12th, 10th. The floor seems like he's a top 10 guy every tournament now. Rory, as much as I loved him that last week, I don't necessarily dislike him this week, but I will say this. I can't get on board playing him at 10-8 from the standpoint of the inconsistency. We're gonna need some sure things up here, but the ownership is kind of intriguing. Most likely
that's not to interrupt you, man, but I kind of think, if you're ever going to give any mind to ownership, this is the week to do that. Just because there are no sure things. I feel there are no sure things in this tournament. And I relearn that lesson every single year, it feels like. But I think if you are going to pay any attention to ownership, our boy Eric Darbo from Sweet Spot DFS is probably fussing at me right now. But, if you are going to take the ownership angle, this is a week to do it, man, and to get contrarian just because this course does create such volatility.
I agree. I'll go down my top here, though. I mean, he ranks out of these 5 guys, he ranks the worst for me in my model, and that's Colin Moricawa. But I mean, guys, if he makes anything at all this week, Joe, he's gonna win the tournament. That's just all there is to it. JT, I feel like he's played terrible this year, but then I went back and looked, and he's finished 20th, 8th, and 6th in his last 3 outings. So I'm not really ready to know if I'm ready to pull the trigger on him. And his ownership is going to be, pretty similar to Rahm and Morikawa. So we just got to decide there. Another low ownership, honestly, possibly, around 10%, Victor Hovland. He ranks 4th in my model. Kind of strange. Those greens were a little bit softer on Sunday on the back 9. He wins that tournament by 3 shots, right? Donald Palmer.
Yeah, he had a couple of loose shots, man. Couple of loose shots. Struggled out of the bunkers. Was kind of my big takeaway, which is something that he could get back into again this week. On this golf course. I just think he's a really quality player, man. This golf course is a little bit gimmicky, which I feel mutes a little bit of his advantage and how good he is with the driver. There's a lot of less than driver holes on this course, but he's able to take advantage of the par 5s. He's excellent from tee to green. So, anything can happen if he's hitting greens and making a few putts, but he is going to kind of struggle with it, which has always been the knock on Vic, around the greens and out of the bunkers a little bit.
Yeah. And I played around with the pricing earlier today. And, I think you can get some value guys in there with a couple of studs. So I wouldn't mind pulling the trigger really on these bottom three in this price range. I think those are going to be your three. You're getting a lot more value from those than you are the ones at the top. And I mean, John Rahm, the putter thing really kind of concerned me there, that little bit of media it got this past weekend. Moving on to the 9K range, Joe. Spieth, Scheffler, Smith, DeChambeau, who's withdrawn, so put that on your list. Matsuyama, Xander Schauffele, DJ Cantley. I mean, I don't know if we're ready to fire on DJ yet this year, but I mean, he's not played well here. He does not come at my model very good. He's 40th in my model, but I mean, we're getting him. We're probably going to get him under 8% owned, which is unheard of for him. And I don't necessarily like him, Joe, but I mean, that's a contrarian play on this golf course in this range. So I hate saying it, but from a contrarian standpoint point of view, I like DJ in the 9K range.
Yeah, man. Certainly very interesting. I mean, we're getting a high quality player, who definitely had his struggles to start his career on this golf course, but has, really learned how to play it. Had a T5 here a couple of years ago. Ran off several consecutive made cuts. So, he's figured TPC Sawgrass out. As far as that goes, I just don't know where his game is at the moment, man. I was really encouraged by the way he looked at Torrey at the Farmers, and then I missed really badly on him at Riviera, a course where he's dominated throughout his career. He just didn't look good. So he's perhaps the most unreliable that we've seen him in a long time, Andrew. But I get what you're saying as far as trying to get some leverage there in this 9K range, where I think a lot of these guys are going to be popular. You talk about Patrick Cantley, the guy's been a machine this year. Multiple top fives already. Had a really good chance to win in Phoenix. Had a really good chance to win at Pebble Beach. But he's doing a lot of it with the putter, which is just kind of his game, man. He's lost strokes on approach in 3 of his 5 starts this year, which is a tiny bit of a red flag for me. He's also missed his last couple of cuts at the Players, but he does have 2 top 25s prior to that. So, he's certainly capable of playing this golf course well. I just don't know that I'm all in with him being so close to, the guys that I feel are a little bit more elite above him. Xander, we always love. Had a runner up here in his debut back in 2018, but has missed a couple cuts in his last 2 Players starts. He's just really solid, man. Very good in every aspect of the game. We've seen that translate well in the majors. And I think there's a strong chance it translates well here this week. So I like Xander a lot. Hideki Matsuyama, kind of an underrated course history play. We know what type of form he's shown over the course of this season. Won back at the Zozo, won at the Sony, and has looked solid, man, really throughout 2022. And this course sets up well for him. So I like Hideki. I think you can go back to Scottie Shaffler. One thing about his victory last week, it's probably gonna knock people off him a little bit. Everybody's always reluctant to play guys coming off a win, but we saw him follow up his win in Phoenix with a T7 at the Genesis. So I don't have any concerns about whether he'll be able to kind of be up for this event. He missed the cut in his Players debut last year, so he's kind of got that learning curve, which we see a lot of these guys need at TPC Sawgrass. But I think you can, go right back to the Scottie Shaffler well if you want to.
Yeah, don't disagree with that take it all, Joe, with the Scottie Shaffler look. Moving on to the 8K range, and it seems like I keep saying this every week, but in the 8K range, Joe, there's so much win equity in this range this week. This is strong. Lowry, Horschel, Adam Scott, Sungjae M, Joaquin Needham, Tony Finau, Brooks Koepka, Luis Oosthuizen, Daniel Berger, Will Zalatoris. I mean, literally, I would not be surprised if any of those guys won. Shane Lowry seems to sneak up on when the going gets tough and plays well in tournaments. Horschel is a perfect golf course for him. Tee to green matters. Adam Scott, same thing. Sungjae M does everything pretty good. Joaquin Needham, if he can get the putter going. Same thing with Brooks and Tony. I know their games hadn't been exactly where they want them yet, but I could see either one of those guys. Luis, solid. Daniel Berger, nearly won. Willie Z, nearly won this year. I like all these guys here, Joe. I want to say probably like Lowry and Willie Z the most in this range. That's just me personally. I could see Berger getting hot, but you can make a big number on this golf course. And so I'll stick with the two guys I picked. Willie Z, Shane Lowry in the 8K range. I love.
Yeah, I like those picks, AP, and I like this range as a whole, man. It almost feels like you could just camp out in the 8Ks this week and make a lot of really good lineups. Just kind of building from this range. A lot of potential winners in here, quality players, and this kind of speaks to the strength of this week's field that we're seeing a lot of these guys in the 8K range, which we rarely do. Willie Z, I was huge on last week, man. Just fell apart on me on Sunday. Also had a bad round Friday, so that putter is still an issue, man. I feel like we're kind of beating a dead horse with it, but he's eventually going to have to make some putts if he's going to win a golf tournament, and we just hadn't seen it yet. Lost strokes putting in every start this year. That was the case again last week. Lost strokes putting and around the green. So we love him from tee to green. I love him as a player, but you want to see some positive things happen on the greens, and that just hadn't happened yet. Just from a pure guy that I feel is a good play. If you're just on team play the best plays, really like Daniel Berger this week, man. I like the fit here. I think he'll be motivated to bounce back from kind of that collapse at the Honda from a couple weeks ago. That might hurt his ownership a little bit. I'm kind of hopeful it will anyway. That maybe we can grab him at decent ownership levels this week, but I really like his prospects, man. He's made 5 players cuts in a row with a couple top 10s among those. So I just really like the fit for Berger here. Koepka's interesting. Anytime you can catch this guy at 8,600, man, you kind of got to give him a look. I normally just only play him in majors, but this is about as close as it gets to a major. I don't know that the golf course is a tremendous fit for him, but we've seen a T11 and a T16 here over the last few years from Brooks. Looked solid at the Honda, had a T16, played well in Phoenix. So for the last couple of years, we've heard he's going to take these kind of regular events more seriously, but it seems like he actually is this year. But I don't think he's going to go overlooked, man. I don't think you're going to sneak up on anybody by playing Brooks here at 86. I think he's going to garner a fair amount of ownership, but the upside is interesting at this price point. You mentioned Neiman, Sungjae, both very, very solid. Adam Scott is maybe my favorite here at the bottom of the range. I don't know that there's a ton of win equity there, but on a course that kind of produces volatility at a huge rate, he's been very, very consistent. Won this golf tournament 18 years ago, Andrew, and we're still talking about the guy. And the reason we are is because he's been so good here. Has 4 top 12s in his last 5 player starts. So it's kind of unbelievable just how good and consistent Adam Scott's been on this golf course. Just one other thing about Billy Horschel. We seen him play really well. I'm not a huge Billy Horschel fan at all. But the irons have been good. Normally when he's hot, it's all due to the putter, and the putter has been good, but the irons have been very, very solid. So, I think you can look at Billy Horschel, but if you're playing FanDuel, man, I know we almost always focus on Draftkings, but Billy Horschel is extremely underpriced on FanDuel this week. So I'll be playing some over there, and I'll be getting my Horschel exposure on FanDuel this week.
Man, with the strategy, I like it, Joe. Like it. You were talking about Adam Scott and how, let's be honest, this golf course is like perfect for him. This is like Davis Love III style golf course. Adam Scott, tee to green, just guy hits it so good and so straight, and it's perfect for the stadium course. Let's go on the 7K range, and like every week, too many names to mention, tons of value here. I could see some winners coming out of this price range too, Joe. I will hit on a few guys that I've got green lighted. I'll start out with we got to talk about Chris Kirk, Joe. He's the guy that did the WD that caused you to send the email to DraftKings that changed the rule. Appreciate that, Chris Kirk, whenever he withdrew with 1 hole to go. after making like a 17 on set. What did he make, like a 13 or 18 on 17 or something, and withdrew, something like that. And Joe he withdrew. Joe lost all of his first 16 holes points, and so Joe wrote an email to DraftKings, and they changed the rule about a month later. Appreciate that, buddy. So I got to talk about him. I mean, his golf course sets up good for him, Joe. Hits it straight. I love it. I would say I would be hard up on Maverick McNeely, but we like to we've mentioned this before. We like to play him in the weaker field tournaments. He's really shines in those, it seems like, but I do still like him here. Russell Knox, I think he's a member here, Joe, and he's had some success here. I know he's tough to stomach watching him putt sometimes, but I think I'm pretty sure he ranks number 1 this year in proximity on tour, which is hard to believe since his results haven't shown. Taylor Gooch had a chance to win this weekend. He's played well here before. I love Cameron Young. I'm starting to really, really like that guy. Really, really, really like him. Corey Connors, 7,300. How many weeks is Corey Connors going to be in the 7,000s, Joe? We talk about him every week. My man Sergio, 7,400, has tons of success in this golf tournament. And then you get up in the upper sevens. I mean, it's Sam Burns, Terrell Hatton. How's he 7,800 in this tournament? Fitzpatrick, Webb Simpson's won here before. Answer's strong. Homa's played a good. Leishman's great. And of course, Jason Day's all kinds of talent. But one thing when you're looking into the 7K range, I would look for some grinders. And what I mean by that is somebody like Matthew Fitzpatrick, Terrell Hatton, has played a lot of European events, because we haven't talked about this yet, but the weather forecast looks like 88% chance of rain on Thursday, 96% chance of rain on Friday. And I don't even remember, on maybe 70% on Saturday. And I think the high 56 on Sunday, no rain. There's a good chance this is going to go into Monday, going to be frustrating for a lot of players. I know they're still playing for $20 million, Joe, but it's real easy for people to give up. And we want to look for some grinders. And this 7K range is where we need to be really, really studying them. So, Joe, why don't you take the 7K range? I had a lot of words right there. So why don't you hit this range?
Yeah, man, it's hard not to say a lot of words about this range, because there are so many good players in here, so many players that we are seeing at a drastic discount compared to their normal DFS prices. So it's definitely worth going through, but because these are guys that we're kind of going to be leaning on this week. The first one that jumps out to me, you mentioned, it was Matt Fitzpatrick. Had a T9 here last year. This golf course suits him. Not too long for him, which is kind of always something I want to evaluate when looking at him. And the guy's got top 10s in every PGA Tour event he's played this year, Andrew. So the form is certainly there. I think the fit's good enough, especially at this $7,700 price tag, to kind of give, as you say, the green light to Matt Fitzpatrick this week. The guy that, there's no love lost between me and Sergio Garcia, but the track record here is phenomenal. So consistently good, very reminiscent of Adam Scott. And there's a lot of similarities in those guys as far as just being excellent from tee to green, excellent ball strikers. So, I mean, I think you can give Sergio a look, just due to the track record. The bottom of the sevens is stacked. Just kind of start there with Corey Connors, who you mentioned had a top 10 in this event last year. Finally kind of came around after a sluggish start to the year, came around last week at Bay Hill. So I think you can give Corey Connors a look. I'm with you, man. I love Cameron Young. Love that guy. Had a ton of exposure to him last week, and he played really well. Had a triple on the last hole Saturday, which I think kind of hurt. Maybe him coming out on Sunday, but really a young player that hung very, very tough has hung very tough at some really difficult golf courses, Bay Hill, Riviera, Torrey. We've seen him play well at all those. TPC Sawgrass is a little bit more on the gimmicky side than those courses, I would say. So, and it is notoriously tough on first timers. So I'm maybe not as big on Cameron Young as I might otherwise be, just because this will be his first start on this golf course, but really love him as a player. I think you can toss him in GPPs, just because he is so explosive. Taylor Gooch has had a chance to win two two golf tournaments this year, Andrew. He struggled again in the final round last week at Bay Hill. But I think at $7,200, you have to give a long, hard look to Taylor Gooch, especially in single entry stuff and cash game stuff. Had a T5 on this golf course last year. We know he can handle, difficult layouts. So I think you have to give a ton of consideration to Taylor Gooch there at 7,200. And then there's a little trio, really four guys there at the 7K mark that I really like. That I'll be playing pretty often this week. That's Tom Hoge, Chris Kirk, Lanto Griffin, and Alexander Noren. I'll be playing all of those guys. Tom Hoge, man, fought back. I think he had like an opening around 78 or 9 last week and made the cut. Kind of kept fighting, and you mentioned grinders, so Hoagie's certainly got that grinder mentality. Showed it last week. Has a win on his resume this year at Pebble. So 3 straight made cuts in this event. So I think you can give Tom Hoge a long, hard look there. And Chris Kirk, oh man, I don't know how many putts inside 5 feet that Chris Kirk missed Sunday. It was pretty difficult to watch. I had him in all my big lineups. Still a great outing, but man, you kind of wonder what might have been with Kirk. I missed a lot of shorties there Sunday, AP, but the course history here is very, very good. We know the form's great. I expect to be very popular, but I'm not going to hesitate to just keep on firing away with Chris Kirk with how he's been playing, and then Lanto and Noren I think might be a chance to kind of get contrarian there around some of these really popular guys. I think we're going to see ownership pull up a little bit. Noren's got a couple of really good players outings on his resume. He's missed the cut in his last 2 player starts, but he's kind of back on his game this year. We've seen some nice outings from him, so I think Alex Noren at 7K is a solid option.
There's 7K range, a lot to take in, guys. 6K range isn't going to be much better. Lot of talent down here as well. I just will say this: when was the last time Bubba Watson was in the 6,000s, Joe? You get that ton. Really, too many people to talk about down here. So I'm gonna give the floor to you to attack this 6K range, and I'll follow up, and we'll close out.
Yeah, man, I think this is you're getting down in the GPP territory down here. One thing I will say, you mentioned like a player like a Bubba Watson, like a Matthew Wolfe. Not guys specifically that we necessarily want to play this week, but very, very quality players. And because this field is so deep, that's what we're seeing down throughout the 6K range. So, I mean, I think you can go down here. This salary scale kind of lends itself to balanced bills because there's so many good players, in the 7 and 8Ks. But if you're trying to get contrarian, which we talked about in this tournament, it is not a bad strategy to take because it is such a high variance event. I think you can certainly go down here and feel okay, about the guys you're rostering. I mean, you mentioned a couple. There's Bubba. We got Matt Wolfe, who's not on my radar this week. Just not in good form right now, and this isn't a great fit for him. I am a little interested in Mito Pereira. You can kind of feel like he's maybe underperformed a little bit this year in comparison to what he did last year, but he's had a pretty solid start to the year. Nothing splashy, but I think he's worth a look at 6,700. Same can be said of Sebastian Munoz. They're at the same price. He's a player that I like. Aaron Wise bounced back, played some pretty solid golf last week. So he's the type of guy that I always want to give a look to, especially at this price tag. Higo's a talented player, and it just gets down into veterans. Bo Hostler's a guy that, it's kind of gross anytime you bring his name up, especially, with all the options in this field. But he has put forth some nice efforts this year. So just a little shout out there to Bo Hostler. Denny McCarthy's a guy I think maybe flying under the radar a little bit. Made the cut in his last 2 player starts. We know what type of putter he is when he gets hot. So I think you can look at him on Bermuda. And after that, you're kind of punting. Taylor Pender's a player that I like, but his advantage is his length off the tee. That's kind of muted this week. And let's talk about your boy, man. Before he went on the air last week, you said, I don't know what's going on, but Nick Watney's popping in my model. and sure enough, he went out and had a great week, man. So are you going back to Nick Watney at 6,200 AP?
I'm not. I don't think I'll be looking anywhere. To really be honest with you, I'm not favoring really much of anything. There's some guys that are popping in the model down here in the 6K range, and I'll just throw those names out there. But I'm gonna stay away from everybody down here. Really, Mito Pereira's 29th in my model. Aaron Wise 42nd. Joseph Bramlett 68th. That had 170th. Bo Hostler 60th. Pat Perez 39th. Peters 51st. But I'm gonna be staying away from this whole area. I think there's enough value in the 7K and up, and you can find some really solid players that you can. I mean, I'm not saying you'd mortgage the house on Chris Kirk, but he's 7,300, Joe. So I don't see dropping down 6K range if you're not going to play him. So figure out a way to get everybody in your lineup above 7,000 and go from there. Saying that, let's get on to the most exciting part of the show, the Heart and the Dart series. I'm gonna go first this week, Joe. I'm throwing a dart, and I've been anti this guy a lot. For whatever reason, but this week I'm all in. Matthew Fitzpatrick, but Matthew Fitzpatrick, 7,800, I think. 7,700. So Matthew Fitzpatrick, there's no telling where his ownership is going to be. I'd say it's going to be decently high. There's a lot of people though in the 7K range. I wouldn't mind Terrell Hatton either, but those are I'm going to go Fitzpatrick as my dart play of the week.
I really like it, man. I think I think it's maybe underestimating him to consider him a dart. But I mean, I know where you're coming from. He's priced in the 7K range. Not really considered one of the, elite players in the world. So I really like him this week as well, man. I think that's a great call. For me, I'm going to go down the bottom of the 7Ks and our boy. I mean, we just got to stick with him, right? He's done a lot for us over the last few weeks. Chris Kirk, 7K. We know he's capable of playing this golf course well. We know the form's there. Maybe he can make some putts at least for the first 3 rounds. So I'm going to stay on the wagon, man. We've been there. Shout out to Taylor Gooch at 7,200, who's maybe the best value on this slate, but my dart this week is Chris Kirk.
Yeah, I love that. We've been talking about him for 2 years, and he has not disappointed, man. We like him a lot of weeks because you're getting a lot of value out of him, and on these especially golf courses where ball striking's a premium, and he can reach about every par 5 on the PGA Tour and 2, and if he can just make a few 4-footers, we're expecting his ownership to be somewhere in the 8 to 12% range, and it's probably pretty decent there. Fitzpatrick, I'll go back on him a little bit. His ownership could spike all the way up to 20%. And if you're looking for somebody that maybe the rest of the field's on, Terrell Hatton is definitely a good spinoff for that. Where's your heart at this week, Joe?
Man, so many guys I love, just players that I love in this golf tournament. You talk about Colin Moricawa, maybe my favorite player out there right now. Victor Hovland's not far behind. Willie Z, Scottie Shaffler, who was so good to me last week. But I'm going out on a limb. I want to say first time in history we have a back-to-back Players Champion. Andrew, I'm going JT. JT is the heart play this week.
I don't hate it. Don't necessarily love it, but I don't hate it. I think I picked him last year and he won. So you're picking him this year. I hope I'm pulling for you. My heart play of the week, man. I've got to stay with Colin Montgomery. If he makes a putt, man, he wins this golf tournament hits the ball straight. His only concern, I think, is sometimes he can get a little bit wiry with the driver, and we don't want to see that. But love Colin Montgomery on this track.
Colin
Moricawa. I get tongue tied all of a sudden. Colin Moricawa on this track this week, 10-7. He is probably going to be very popular though. That is the downside to playing him. Everybody,
you gotta pick your guys and take your stands. I think you can it's easy to get carried away trying to play everybody this week. So, I mean, ownership aside, if you love Colin Moricawa, stick him in there, make your choice and go with it. But I think you can kind of get yourself in trouble on a slate like this one by just trying to get exposure to everybody. That very rarely works. And if you miss, you're going to miss. But if you hit, you're going to give yourself some chances.
I agree, Joe. I think that about wraps us up for this week. I'm going to give a little shout out to Ryan Hall from our home country club, Beaverbrook. He has a 6-shot lead going in tomorrow at the Palmetto Intercollegiate, hosted in Aiken, South Carolina. Team's got like a 10-shot lead. He's got a 6-shot lead on the individual. Going to take down another title. Senior at the University of South Carolina from our home club. All-American, All-SEC, future PGA Tour player, Ryan Hall from Beaverbrook Country Club. Brooks got your back, Ryan. We love watching you play. One last thing before we get off here. I got a little contest on the Twitter. If you go to my Twitter page at Andrew Putters, you can follow it, enter it. And if you like what you heard, give us a like, give us a follow, share with your friends, hit us up on Twitter, hit us up over there on Rotoballer. We got a Slack discussion group we get into. So I appreciate everybody listening with us tonight. Players Championship right around the corner here. Thank you, Rotoballer.com, for everything you do for us. And you have listened to the Turn Fantasy Golf Podcast.
It's gonna drive